The madam was in the process of choosing a wife for the eldest young master, and every noble lady in the capital was buzzing with excitement. I, however, was busy roasting a fish I just caught, the aroma wafting through the air. Tuan Mama looked at me and sighed. Once a mistress enters this house, your easy days will be over. How can you still have the heart to eat fish? With a fish tail still hanging from my mouth, I looked up at her brightly. Has she picked a lady yet? Do you think I could beg her to be merciful and just let me go? No, Tuan Mama said, pointing at my protruding belly. She told me I was daydreaming. I figured it was fine to dream a little. You never know when a dream might actually come true. Chapter 1. My name is Tu He. I was originally just an ordinary maid in the Yang residence. But 4 months ago, on a night when the moon was high and the wind was howling, the eldest young master, Yang Jijin, stumbled home. Usually a man of strict propriety, he seemed possessed by some demon that night and forced himself on me while I was turning down his bed. That night, I left 8 bloody scratch marks on his face. In return, he took me 4 times. After that harrowing night, the eldest young master gained a roommate, and I could no longer remain a simple servant. From then on, whenever he saw me, he'd take the long way around to avoid me. I was perfectly happy with that. I enjoyed the leisure, collected my allowance, and spent my days eating and relaxing without a lick of work to do. I even had people serving me. Occasionally, I'd sneak into his study while he was out to pilfer the books he kept hidden away. To my surprise, a man as stuffy and serious as Yang Jijin was secretly reading some rather colorful novels. He seemed to add a new one every 2 days. Whether he actually read them or not was none of my business. I certainly found them entertaining. I thought these peaceful days would continue until he got married, at which point he'd give me a few 100 taels as compensation and send me on my way. But then I got pregnant. God, I was furious. Suddenly my status became quite delicate. I went to the madam and offered some very sincere advice. If word got out that the eldest young master had an expectant maid before he'd even taken a wife, it would ruin his stellar reputation, especially since he was a renowned scholar in the imperial court. The madam was delighted with my sensible attitude. She immediately rewarded me with 500 taels and sent me to a country estate, promising to bring me back once the young master was married. I waved her off frantically, playing the part of the selfless servant. There's no need to bring me back, madam. I wouldn't dream of interfering with the young master's domestic bliss or his bright future. Deeply moved, the madam gave me another 100 taels. I packed my bags and left for the manor that very day. Life at the estate was even more liberated than I'd imagined. There were 200 acres of lush green land, and a small stream ran behind the house where fish swam in crystal clear water. Tuan Mama, who looked after me, expected me to be miserable. Instead, I was like a monkey returned to the forest. She asked in disbelief, "Aren't you worried the young master will never send for you?" "It's better if he never does," I replied. I had no desire to be a concubine. Life was blissful, climbing trees, catching fish, and eating to my heart's content. But before long, the eldest young master showed up. When he arrived, I was perched in a tree picking mulberries, my face stained dark purple from eating as I worked. He looked up at me, his face pale, while I looked down at him and saw blood soaking through his robes. "Oh, hello, young master," I said, waving a hand. He managed a weak smile before collapsing to the ground. It took all the strength Tuan Mama and I had to drag him inside. I swear that was the most exhausting thing I'd done since transmigrating into this maid's body. The second most exhausting being those 4 rounds that night. He had arrow wounds in his shoulder and chest. He refused to let us call a doctor, so I had to handle it myself. I might have been a doctor in my past life, but pulling an arrowhead out with my bare hands was a first. Fortunately, his constitution was strong. After 2 days of high fever, he finally woke up. He asked who had treated his wounds and who had changed his clothes. The treatment was me, I said, applying crushed herbs to his leg. And the clothes? That was also me. I noticed he seemed incredibly shy. It made me wonder why he'd been so feral that first night. Thinking of that night made me a bit annoyed, so I pressed down a little harder on his wound. He broke into a cold sweat from the pain. Too-hee, when you changed me, did you see a letter? It's under your pillow, I replied. He scrambled to check the pink envelope, sighing in relief when he saw it was intact. Judging by the delicate handwriting, it was clearly from a woman. Who knew the perfect young master was such a romantic? Too-hee, he said suddenly. Come back to the residence with me. You are mine now. I won't let you suffer out here. I gave him a tearful, heartfelt refusal, outlining all the reasons why my return would be a disaster for everyone involved. I concluded with my final proposal. If you're truly worried about me and the child, you could just send me a monthly allowance of, say, 100 taels. I'll live well, and you and your future wife will be happy. Everyone wins. I tucked his blanket in and patted his hand solemnly. A win-win situation, young master. He stared at me for a long time, speechless. I tried to read his expression, but I didn't know him well enough to guess what he was thinking, aside from knowing he had a decent physique. If 100 is too much, maybe 80, I ventured. Still no response. 50? I can't go lower than 50. I started counting on my fingers, listing the costs of raising a child, clothes, and school fees. I was quite the accountant. He looked away, his voice raspy and defeated. Too-hee, I'm tired. I want to sleep. He never said yes or no to the money. More importantly, he decided to stay at the manor to recover. Your wounds are serious, I told him. It'll take at least a month to fully heal. Can you hold out that long? Or should Tuan Mama take you back? He looked at me with a pained expression. Do you really dislike me that much? Fine. I'll leave. He made a show of trying to sit up, acting incredibly frail. His movements were so clumsy he almost reopened his wounds. With his robes half open and that pitiful look on his face, he was hard to refuse. No, I don't hate you. I spent the next 15 minutes reassuring him of my loyalty until he finally lay back down. Rest well. I'll go make some chicken soup. When the soup was ready, he still couldn't sit up. Tuan Mama suggested a plan. Too-hee, sit behind him and hold him up while I feed him. That seems inappropriate, I said, looking at him. He looked back at me. Tuan Mama whispered in my ear, What's there to be shy about? He's your man. If he recovers well, aren't you the one who benefits? She emphasized benefits with a classic busybody smirk. I shot her a look. Her whisper was loud enough for anyone within a mile to hear. Ultimately, I had to sit behind him. He was tall, and even sitting down, he towered over me. Having his large, weak frame leaning against me was a strange sensation. Tuan Mama was so excited she spilled soup on his clothes several times. Oh dear, the shirt is ruined, she said, her grin getting even more suggestive. Too-hee, help the young master change. He didn't say anything as I changed him, though his ears and chest turned bright red. I muttered, No need to be shy, young master. You were quite comfortable that night. Ahem. He turned his head away, his face scarlet. It was dark that night. I must have misheard the hint of regret in his voice. He was a high-born gentleman who had never touched a woman before me. In the year I'd worked in his courtyard, he'd barely spoken 2 words to me. To be fair, he was a good master. He'd caught me stealing snacks and reading his books twice and never punished me. He was even a gentleman when I'd accidentally left some racy stories I'd written in his room. He handed them back without a word. "Too-hee, do you hear scratching sounds at night?" he asked one day, looking genuinely frightened. "I don't hear anything. There are no wolves here." He shifted his eyes. "My injuries. Don't tell anyone. I'm afraid my enemies might find me. I have no one to protect me now." "Then you should leave soon," I suggested. "I'm just one woman. I can't protect you." He sighed. "Too-hee, I'm just a useless man now. It's probably better if I just die out here so I don't cause anyone any trouble." Out of pure humanity, I had to be polite. "I'll protect you." "Thank you, Too-hee," he said instantly, in scooting over to make room on the bed. "Let's turn in early then." I felt like I'd been played. I refused to sleep there and gave him a sedative instead. "The scratching is just because you're not sleeping well. You won't hear it tonight." I tucked him in and left under his reproachful gaze. But that night, I heard it too, a terrifying scratching sound right by my ear. I checked the courtyard, but it was empty. Terrified, I went to find Duan Mama, but she was snoring like a chainsaw. I grabbed my blanket and went to the young master's room. He was fast asleep, occupying only a corner of the bed as if he'd left space for me. I lay down quietly. He smelled good. Eventually, I drifted off. In my half-sleep, I felt like someone was talking to me. I muttered something about how marriage in a feudal society was just a recipe for suffering. There was a sigh and then silence. The next morning, Duan Mama had to return to the residence, leaving me to care for him. He was still weak and scared, so he invited me to sleep in his room again. That night, I realized I'd forgotten to give him his sedative. Just as I was about to sneak out, he woke up. I was just going to the bathroom. I got lost," I stammered. As I turned to leave, he grabbed my waist from behind. "Don't go." My heart hammered in my chest. "I know I'm dreaming," he whispered against my back, his breath warm. "A dream isn't so bad." He didn't do anything else. I called his name, but he didn't answer. His arms stayed wrapped around me. I ended up dreaming about that first night, and I woke up to find myself kissing him. I'd kissed him awake. I'm so sorry." I fumbled for an explanation. His eyes were misty, almost as if he were under a spell, and then he kissed me back, softly, like spring rain. "Too-hee, why won't you come back with me? Why don't you want to be my concubine?" "I just don't," I said simply. He sighed and pulled me into his arms. "I'm sorry. I haven't thought this through. It's not your fault. What do you want, Too-hee?" "Money," I replied instantly. "Do you know how hard it is for a woman to survive alone with a child?" "I have my ways." I looked at him seriously. "Young master, let's be honest. You can't marry me and I don't want to be a concubine. The best solution is for you to give me a sum of money and let me go. It's better for both of us." He looked stunned. Most maids would jump at the chance to be a concubine. It was a huge step up in status. But I wasn't most maids. Duan Mama eventually returned with big news. The madam had officially arranged the young master's marriage to Lady Liu, the daughter of Marquis Yang. She was a famous beauty and scholar. "A match made in heaven," everyone said. "Once the new mistress arrives, you're finished," Duan Mama hissed. I handed her half a roasted fish. "Do you think she'd give me some money to leave if I asked nicely?" Duan Mama pointed at my belly again. "The Yangs are a great family. Even if a child out of wedlock is a scandal, the madam won't let a Yang descendant go." I frowned. "What about after I give birth? Can I leave then? You know, keep the child, lose the mother style?" My first choice was to take the baby with me, but I knew I couldn't win a custody battle against the Prime Minister's family. Not when they held my indenture contract. "Don't you have any feelings for him?" Duan Mama asked. Feelings for the man who forced me into this, I countered. She went silent. Then she bowed. Behind me stood Yang Zijin, holding a watermelon I'd mentioned wanting the day before. He was sweaty and pale, his smile frozen on his face. I didn't say a word. I knew he'd heard everything. Before he left, he gave me 5,000 taels. It was enough to live on for a lifetime, as long as I didn't try to start a business. Life at the manor actually improved. The residents sent over every new delicacy and plenty of ice to combat the summer heat. By winter, they sent carts of charcoal. Duan Mama heard that the wedding was set for before the new year. He hasn't visited in 6 months, she grumbled. Are you happy now? If he gave me back my deed of sale, I'd be even happier, I said, eating roast chicken. One night, a woman from the village came banging on our door. Her grandson had been gored by a bull. I'd been helping the villagers with medical issues for the past few months, so I grabbed my kit. It was a brutal surgery, and by the time I finished, my legs were swollen with fatigue. The child developed a fever. We were out of medicine, and the pharmacies in town didn't have what we needed. I was starting to lose hope when a maid arrived with the exact herbs required, rare ones that could only have come from the imperial pharmacy. Only Yang Jijin could have sent them. The child survived, and my reputation as a healer grew. For New Year's, the residents sent gifts, and his guard, Dong Qing, brought me a red envelope containing another 1,000 taels. As my due date approached, the madam visited. She prepared everything: midwives, baby clothes, supplies. She told me the wedding was set for May 18th. He spent a month here last year, she said. He must like you. He's usually so reserved, just like his father. It's a pity your birth is too lowly to be his wife. I know, I interrupted, repeating my desire to stay away. She was pleased with my compliance. I noticed she looked unwell, asymmetrical shoulders, dry skin. Madame, are you suffering from constipation? She was taken aback and her nurse scolded me. I advised her to eat less rich food and see a doctor, though I doubt she listened. I went into labor in the middle of the night. It was more painful than I ever imagined. By dawn, through the haze of agony, my daughter was born. Duan Mama tried to take the baby outside. Where are you going? I haven't even seen her. The young master is outside, she beamed. He's been there all night. He says she looks just like you. I was shocked. He'd opened the city gates at midnight and ridden all the way here just to stand outside in the cold. Chapter 2. The baby, whom I called Mai Hui, was an easy child. A few days later, Yang Jijin came to visit while I was trying to breastfeed. He'd hired a wet nurse, but I wanted to try it myself. It hurt so much I ended up crying for Duan Mama to take her away. The young master is here, she whispered later. Did he talk to you? I shook my head. By the time she went out, he was gone. He'd left a name for the baby, Yang Wenmo. Then, Duan Mama came in crying. She handed me an envelope. Inside was my deed of sale, stamped and released. I was no longer a slave, and there were also property deeds for a house in my name. He said this is what you wanted, she sobbed. Whether you stay or go is up to you now. The house was perfect in a quiet but central part of the city. We moved in after my recovery month. I lived a peaceful life with Duan Mama, the wet nurse, and Wenmo. One day, while out buying fabric, I saw Yang Jijin's fiancée, Lady Liu. She was stunning, elegant, and wealthy. But the girl beside her was even more beautiful, with an aura of true nobility. I could only marvel at how many precious people lived in the capital. With your lack of ambition, you wouldn't last 3 rounds against a woman like that, Duan Mama teased. That night, loud banging at the door woke us. It was Yang Jijin. He looked thinner, more solemn. It's late, I said. What's wrong? My mother, he said, his eyes searching mine. She collapsed this afternoon. A dozen doctors and the imperial physicians have all seen her, but they're helpless. My nurse said you mentioned her illness once. Please. I didn't hesitate. I changed quickly and got into his carriage. As we rode, I asked about her symptoms. I don't know exactly, he admitted, looking exhausted. The court has been so busy. I haven't been home in 4 days. How can I help you further? I nodded, signaling my understanding. Is the emperor still unwell? If something happens to him, will the crown prince ascend the throne? This was my first real brush with the world of emperors and princes. Despite having lived in this world for 2 years, the concept of imperial power still felt like a distant, ethereal dream, something far beyond my reach. It won't be that simple. Recently, rumors have been circulating in court regarding the crown prince's parentage. Yang Zhijin didn't seem to think it was a waste of time to discuss politics with a woman like me. He continued, when the crown prince was born, rumors spread that he wasn't the emperor's biological son. It was the classic changeling story, that he was swapped at birth. Is there any evidence? I asked. None. But rumors are dangerous things, especially when they involve the royal bloodline. He paused, looking at me warmly. Are you and Mai Hui doing well? Very well. We have money and plenty of leisure time. Yang Zhijin smiled. His smiles had always been gentle, like a refreshing spring breeze that made everyone around him feel at ease. As for the madam's illness, it was both complicated and simple. She had developed a blood clot thrombosis triggered by severe chronic constipation. Fortunately, we caught it in time to save her life. From now on, she must take her medicine on time and walk for 3 short sessions every day, morning, noon, and night, just as I've demonstrated, I instructed the madam and Wang Mama. The madam found it difficult to speak, but she managed a sincere, "Thank you." She added, "If I had listened to you sooner, I wouldn't be in this state today." Wang Mama stood by her side, weeping. "I'm so sorry, Tu-hee. I was a fool. I thought you were being disrespectful by interfering in the madam's private affairs. Please forgive me." I smiled. "It's fine. In the eyes of a doctor, all patients are the same." Yang Zhijin walked me out. As we passed through his courtyard, I noticed a new addition, a mulberry tree. I looked at him, confused. "I planted it last year," he said softly. "I don't know if it will bear fruit this year, but if it does, I'll bring some to you." I froze for a moment before lowering my head. "Young master, there's no need for that. You're about to be married. It wouldn't be fair to your bride." Yang Zhijin stood with his arms folded, watching me in silence. The April breeze was warm and pleasant, yet a cold, lonely aura seemed to emanate from him. After a long while, he gave a small nod. "Let's go. I'll see you home." Ever since Yang Zhijin mentioned the court affairs, I found myself paying more attention to the news. I often heard the commoners gossiping about the high-ranking officials arguing. I found it hard to believe. Did they actually get into fistfights? No, but apparently they were just as petty as commoners. They're hurling insults at each other's ancestors 18 generations back without using a single swear word. I was impressed. Even with all that education, high officials were still just human. By May, the arguments in court reached a fever pitch. Many people were starting to support the eldest princess. Although she was a woman, her bloodline was pure, and her following was significant. I grew uneasy, fearing a civil war between the crown prince and the princess. Deciding to play it safe, I began stockpiling food. Tuan Mama and I acted like busy little mice, scurrying out every day to buy supplies without drawing attention to ourselves. One afternoon, as we were carrying 2 heavy bags of flour home, we found the main road blocked. We ducked into a narrow alley, only to run into even worse luck. 6 men in black were ganging up on a single man in white. The man in white moved with lethal grace, his sword skills clearly superior. With a cold, calculated strike, he sliced a man's throat. Blood sprayed, yet not a single drop touched his pristine white robes. He had calculated the angle perfectly. It was an eye-opening display of skill. Duan Mama gasped, pointing a trembling finger. Isn't that the eldest young master? I blinked. It was indeed him. The usually frail and refined Yang Zijin was a master martial artist, killing with the cold efficiency of a living llama. This revelation left me stunned. "Let's go. We shouldn't stay here," I whispered, pulling Duan Mama away. "But will the young master be in danger?" she fretted. I didn't know if he was in danger, but I knew we certainly were. Unfortunately, before we could exit the alley, a wounded man in black blocked our path. His eyes darted between Duan Mama and me before he lunged for me. He grabbed me, pressing a cold blade to my neck as he turned to face Yang Zijin. "Don't move, or I'll kill her." My terrified eyes met Yang Zijin's. When he realized it was me, his cold expression turned even colder, his eyes burning with a murderous rage. "She's just a passerby," Yang Zijin said, stepping forward with his sword. "Do you really think you can threaten me with her?" The man in black panicked and backed away, dragging me with him. I couldn't help but offer the man some advice. "Brother, just let me go and run. You might actually survive. If you take me, I'll just be a burden and slow you down." The man, clearly losing his temper, slammed his elbow into my shoulder. My left arm went numb instantly, and tears of pain stung my eyes. In that split second, Yang Zijin's eyes turned blood red. He lunged, driving his sword through the man's wrist. I collapsed into his arms just as the man swung his blade at us in a final desperate act. Yang Zijin didn't dodge. He shielded me with his body. I heard him groan as he spun around to finish the man off. "Are you all right?" he asked urgently. "I'm fine. Where are you hit?" He leaned heavily on my shoulder. "It hurts, Tu-hei. It really hurts." The wound was deep, and I wasn't sure if it had hit the bone. "I can't go home," he whispered. "My mother is still ill. The shock would be too much. Just leave me here. Someone will come for me." I sighed and supported his weight. "Why don't you come to my house?" He looked at me weakly. "But you dislike me so much. Won't my staying there make you hate me even more?" "I don't hate you. Now move. We can't stay here." Yang Zijin complied immediately, and despite his injury, he managed to carry my bag of flour. He was actually moving faster than me. His injuries weren't life-threatening. I judged that he had anticipated the blow and avoided the worst of it. Still, if that blade had hit me, I'd be dead. Now, he had symmetrical wounds on his chest and back. As he lay face down on the bed, he glanced around the room. Realizing it wasn't my bedroom, he looked a bit disappointed. "You've saved my life twice now. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." His current frail act reminded me of the way he'd just slaughtered those men. Clean, efficient, and merciless. You really couldn't judge a book by its cover. And Yang Zijin stayed at my house. Duan Mama was thrilled and immediately set about making chicken soup. I had to remind her, today is May 3rd. He's supposed to be married in 5 days. Duan Mama's face fell and she sat in the courtyard in a gloomy silence. This time, Yang Zijin only stayed for a day and a night. He left the next morning, but not before sneaking into my room in the middle of the night to hold Mai Hui. I knew he was there. He sat by my bed all night watching us. I have no idea what was going through his head. May 6th was the day the Yang family was supposed to deliver the betrothal gifts. It was a grand affair. I could hear the firecrackers from across the city. Zhuan Mama went out to watch the festivities and returned looking even more depressed. On the afternoon of May 7th, the capital suddenly went silent, as if someone had pressed the mute button on a TV. Sensing something was wrong, I locked the gates and made Duan Mama, the wet nurse, and Mai Hui hide in the cellar. My intuition was right. By nightfall, the sounds of fighting erupted outside. I peeked through the gate and saw Yang Zijin's personal guard, Dong Qing, along with 4 other men from the residence. "The eldest young master ordered us to protect you," Dong Qing said. "Don't go out. The city is in chaos." "Is the young master in the palace?" I whispered. "The eldest princess has rebelled. She's staging a coup tonight." I ushered them into the courtyard, and we waited in silence for dawn. The fighting was relentless. In the middle of the night, a blood-soaked guard arrived with news. The princess had sent men to the Yang residence. Dong Qing panicked. "Are the master and madam all right?" The young master made arrangements before entering the palace. "The family is safe, but the marquise's estate has been hit. The princess captured the marquise and Lady Liu. She intends to use them to blackmail the young master." Dong Qing glanced at me strangely. My heart skipped a beat. A sudden, illogical realization hit me. Yang Zijin hadn't visited me, hadn't asked me to return, hadn't mentioned our future. Because he was protecting me? Had he anticipated all of this? I quickly shook the thought away. The night was filled with terror. I worried for Yang Zijin, feared the crown prince might lose, and mourned for the innocent people caught in the crossfire, including Lady Liu. Finally, the sun rose. Dong Qing went out to gather news and returned an hour later, beaming. "We won! The crown prince has won." "And the young master?" I asked. "He's fine. Everyone is fine. I need to go check on the master and madam." I called Duan Mama and Mai Hui up from the cellar. We waited anxiously. I knew swords were blind and Yang Zijin had been injured before the fighting even started. Late that afternoon, there was a knock at the door. I opened it and Yang Zijin practically fell into my arms. I broke into a cold sweat. "Are you hurt again?" He leaned his head on my shoulder. "I'm sorry to bother you again, Tu-hee." I went to treat the old wound on his back, which had reopened, and found a new gash on his arm. He looked at me piteously. "Does it look bad?" I frowned. "Young master, I am a doctor. I've even studied forensics." He looked confused. "And? There is a distinct difference between a wound inflicted by an enemy and one that is self-inflicted. This cut on your left arm. You did this to yourself, didn't you?" He opened his mouth to argue, but seeing my expression, he went silent. His voice dropped an octave. "Tu-hee, I think I have a fever. The wound on my back is definitely infected." He closed his eyes, looking utterly exhausted. "Let me sleep for a bit. I haven't slept in 2 days." He really did fall asleep. He was truly exhausted, but he was also truly a devious man. Today was May 8th. I didn't ask about his wedding, but Duan Mama couldn't help herself. "It's been called off," Yang Zijin said nonchalantly over dinner. Duan Mama and I stared at him. I asked, "What about Lady Liu? The princess took her hostage. Is she all right?" "You worry about too many people," Yang Zijin said, clearly displeased. "Why do you care about her?" "She was innocent. It's only natural to be concerned." "Only you are truly innocent," he said, tapping me on the head. "In a change of dynasty, no one involved is truly innocent." I later learned that the girl I'd seen with Lady Liu that day was the eldest princess herself. They had been close friends since childhood. Lady Liu hadn't agreed to marry Yang Zijin for love, but as part of the princess's long-term plan to sway him to her side. The princess had been planning this coup for years. She even had a hand in the emperor's illness. I had a strange respect for the princess. To achieve that much power as a woman in this world was incredible. But in the end, the winner takes all. And Lady Lu? Dead, Yang Zhijin said flatly. After the princess fell, she held the princess's body and took her own life. I was stunned. Tu Hei, Yang Zhijin said, holding out his arm. My wound really hurts. How much? I asked, moving to inspect it. He described the pain in such dramatic detail that he eventually concluded, I think it would feel better if you blew on it. I stared at him. He was acting like a child. Eventually, I gave in and blew on the wound. Yang Zhijin never went back to the residence. He moved into my guest room and stopped attending the early morning court sessions. He'd handle his official business in the morning, nap with Mai Hui in the afternoon, and spend the rest of the time following me around, talking incessantly. I tried to kick him out, but he refused. I can't be away from my daughter. I'm 21 years old, and she's my only child. You don't understand the joy of having a child at such an advanced age. I couldn't help but laugh. He wasn't even embarrassed. Do you want to open a pharmacy? He asked one day while helping me sort herbs. I can handle the paperwork and the licensing for you. I was thrilled. I'd wanted to open a shop, but the costs and bureaucracy were daunting. Having a backer really did make a difference. So you finally realized the value of having a backer? He watched me intently. Would you consider relying on this backer permanently? I rolled my eyes. The madam will find you a new fiancé soon enough. Why are you hanging around here? Are you trying to keep me as some secret woman on the side? He stopped what he was doing and muttered, No one decides my marriage but you. What? It's clearly you who dislikes me, he grumbled, looking genuinely aggrieved. You're the one who refuses to marry me. Don't go blaming other people. I grabbed his hand. Hold on. Let's get this straight. How am I the one blaming others? He squeezed my hand back. So, does that mean you'll marry me? I was speechless. I want to marry you properly. 8 palanquin style with all the honors. I won't marry anyone else. He looked around the courtyard. If you're more comfortable here, I don't mind living here with you. Consider me your live-in husband. He sighed. And I'm sorry. I know I was impulsive that first night. I understand if you hate me for it. I wanted to tell him I didn't hate him, but I was too stunned by his proposal. She says yes. Duan Mama came running out of the house, holding Mai Hui. Tu, he says yes. Whether it was because Duan Mama was so loud or just a coincidence, Mai Hui let out a happy squeal that sounded suspiciously like, yes, and started giggling. The child agrees, majority rules. Yang Zhijin looked at me with an intensity that made my heart melt. Tu He, give me a chance to make it up to you, all right? Side story, Yang Zhijin. I began my studies at age 3. Since then, every day was the same, reading, writing, and painting. My parents were proud because I excelled beyond any of my peers. At 17, I became the youngest top scholar in the history of the Great Chu. I enjoyed the glory, but my life felt empty. Eventually, the maids in my courtyard began acting up, trying to catch my eye. My mother grew annoyed and replaced them all. I didn't care. I never noticed who turned down my bed or brewed my tea. Until one day, I caught a maid sneaking food in my room. It wasn't a big deal, but she was clever about it. She'd cut a wedge out of a round cake, eat it, and then meticulously rearrange the remaining pieces to look like a perfect, albeit slightly smaller circle. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I never would have noticed. I researched her. Her name was Tu He. She was a lowly maid, but because she was literate, my mother kept her in my courtyard. She used to sneak read my books, all of them. When she hit a difficult passage, she'd study my annotations. Sometimes she'd mutter to herself as she read, divorce and remarriage, and they call this national virtue? This author is a pig. How can he praise such misogyny? And this plot, so childish. If I were the king, I'd just claim the documents were forged. Easy. Her words were blunt, but her perspective was fascinating, a viewpoint I'd never considered. One night, I found a racy novel by my bed. I knew immediately it was hers. It made me blush. It was so bold. Where did she learn such things? When she realized it was missing, she barged into my room while I was undressing for a bath. Her eyes lit up as she looked at me. I saw it clearly. But then she snatched the book and asked if I'd read it. I denied it, of course. I am Yang Jijin. I do not read such things. She looked relieved and didn't forget to take one last look at me before she left. 2. He loved to eat. Every time I saw her, she was chewing on something. Seeds, candy, roasted sweet potatoes, even green peppers. She'd crouch in a corner and eat like a little squirrel. She probably didn't realize how adorable she looked. Then she stopped coming to my study. I thought about it and decided to buy a few colorful novels to place on my shelves. She started coming back, though she had to read in snatches. I noticed she was saving every penny. She never bought snacks when she went out with the other maids. She'd just come home and eat my leftovers. Was she trying to buy her freedom? I also discovered she knew medicine. She'd prescribe herbs for the other servants. I checked her prescriptions with my own doctor, who said they were expertly crafted. On the night of the Lantern Festival, I let the whole courtyard have the night off because I knew she wanted to see the lights. She came back late, smelling of wine, and I was by the window and she stumbled in, trying to act sober. I decided to tease her by asking her to grind ink. She did so obediently, but then she started staring off into space. Suddenly, she grabbed my hand and looked at it closely. "This hand is perfect for acupuncture," she whispered. She actually tried to give me acupuncture, rambling about meridians and pulses. She smelled of osmanthus wine, her eyes misty and beautiful. She was talking nonsense, yet it all made sense. She fell asleep holding my hand. The next morning, she remembered nothing and went back to being the proper maid who never looked me in the eye. Then came the night of the eldest princess's party. She wanted to trap me. She drugged my wine, and I knew Lady Liu was waiting in the next room. The princess wanted to use a scandal to force me into a marriage that would bind me to her cause. I escaped and stumbled home. By some twist of fate, too. He was in my room, turning down the bed. She asked if I was drunk. I tried to stay away, but when she touched my arm, her skin was so cold and soothing. I lost all control. When she became my roommate, I was genuinely happy. I looked forward to coming home every day just to see her. But then she got pregnant and told my mother she wanted to go to the estate. She said it was for the best. It felt like a punch to the gut. I never realized she didn't want to be mine, that she had no interest in being a concubine. When I was injured and fled to the estate, I saw her in that tree, her face stained with mulberries. She looked so alive, so free, like a wild bird that had escaped its cage. And I stayed there, acting pathetic just to be near her. Even when she saw the princess's letter, she didn't care. She told me flat out she didn't want to be a concubine. I realized then, if she won't be a concubine, I will make her my wife. When she told Duan Mama she hated me for changing her life, my heart broke. I left her money and watched her from afar. My mother arranged the marriage with Lady Liu, but I knew it would never happen. On the night, too, he gave birth, I rode through the night just to be outside her door. Hearing her cry in pain made me want to kill myself for what I'd put her through. But when I saw our daughter, it was all worth it. I gave her the deed to her freedom, though I was terrified she'd leave. I bought her a house to make sure she stayed in the city. The princess was a threat, so I stayed away to keep he safe. Once the dust settled, I made sure she had everything she wanted. Now people in the capital call me Dr. Tu's husband. I love that title. I prepared the wedding myself, 10 miles of red dowry to welcome her home. She asked me once, "What's so good about me? Why do you like me?" She doesn't realize that in my eyes, she is a brilliant pearl. She isn't ordinary at all. She broke through the emptiness of my life and brought me a joy I never knew existed. On our wedding day, the mulberry tree I planted was heavy with fruit. 2. He stood beneath it, holding our daughter, her smile as bright as a flower and her eyes full of sweetness.